Hello and welcome to this Astranti video for the Management Case Study exam for the November 2022 and February 2023 sitting. In this video we're going to go through the top 10 issues that we've identified for the pre-scene that has been released. Now we'll be going through why we've picked these top 10 issues, some of the likely issues, key points, relevant theories, etc. And these are all there just to help you better prepare for your exam. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start by just going through why we are looking at these 10 issues to begin with. So, starting off.
So what is the basis for my choices? Well, the first one is what the focus in the pre-scene actually is. Has there been a lot of material that's been mentioned in the pre-scene to do with a particular topic? Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe there hasn't been something that should be mentioned in the pre-scene. And so it might be that will be some of your unseen material in your actual exam. There is also the degree of importance that is attached to the pre-scene by the examiner. So after each exam, an examiner will write up a report talking about what students did or didn't write enough about. So if there are topics that examiners repeatedly say students don't talk about enough, there's a potential likelihood that it may come up again and the examiners will be looking for you to talk about it in your actual exam. Outside of the pre-scene, there is of course the strategic importance of particular topics to the company. You could look at the importance of a SWOT analysis. What are its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And then what kind of strategic importance do the directors attach to a particular issue? Something that has a genuine impact on the business's strategy and critical success factors is far more likely to come up than something that is completely irrelevant to the company. There is also my own experience. I have written a wide variety of mock exams and seen a wide variety of past papers from CIMA, and so I have a good idea of the kinds of topics that CIMA are likely to test students on. And I also keep an eye out on things that are easy to examine. If a CIMA examiner finds a topic that they can write about that will be easy to assess and assess a wide variety of CIMA topics, then it is more likely that they will write questions on those specific areas. It is not likely that the examiner will try to write a really obscure question that's difficult for them to write and assesses an obscure part of the syllabus. First thing is to prepare the key models from the pre-scene information for your exam. So if I'm talking about particular issues and I say you could use Porter's 5 forces or a SWOT analysis, then go back to the pre-scene and prepare your Porter's 5 forces or SWOT analysis. But remember to adapt your models when you receive the unseen information in your exam. Some new points may be raised that you will need to directly address in the exam, and so you must adapt your models accordingly. You should also make sure you sit as many mock exams that cover these issues. For example, Astranti creates mocks based on these key issues that you can use to practice. But you should also sit as many mocks as you can, since it's the best way to prepare for your exam. You get experience writing your answers in the correct style and under time constraints. You should also find any relevant real-life examples. So if you're talking about a particular issue, then go online and find an example that resembles what was happening to the pre-scene company. How did this real-life company overcome a similar problem, or what kind of problems is it currently experiencing? And you can find these sorts of examples in our industry analysis. And in that analysis, we have prepared sample paragraphs that you can use to see what kind of style and how you should use your industry examples in the context of the exam. You should also learn typical key points, and this can be as simple as the advantages and disadvantages. This can be a really good jumping off point for evaluating particular points that may be raised in the unseen material. And finally, be prepared to use models to support your argument, to persuade the examiner that what you are saying is justified and makes strategic and practical sense for your pre-scene company.
Okay, so with that, let's now begin by looking at our first issue, which concerns financing. So why have we chosen this? Well, financing is a key F2 topic, okay? This is a known quantity. It comes up very frequently. It's easy to ask questions about, and it concerns the use of equity financing, debt financing, and the impact certain events can have on the weighted average cost of capital. Now, there is an opportunity to use this kind of question as part of other questions. So, for example, you may get a question on, say, the investment in an acquisition, some sort of investment appraisal, And part of it is to maybe also consider the financial implications of that investment on, say, the weighted average cost of capital, or potentially how you'd go about raising finance for such a project. So as for the likely issues with respect to our pre-scene company, okay, it's pretty generic. You go through some long-term funding requirements, maybe an acquisition of a independent toy retailer. Maybe there is some new projects. Maybe it's looking into researching a new phone app, as we saw in the pre-scene with the loyalty app. Or potentially organically grow, just acquire more stores. It wants to acquire a new store. We know that leases are involved in some capacity, and leases in the financial statement do, in fact, relate to the non-current liabilities. And with financing, the other thing you have to consider is appropriate sources. So you could get an issue where we've got to consider whether it's appropriate or not to use things like rights issues or debentures in that particular event. And that's where you're going to have to bring up things like the gearing ratios and the financial statements to help justify your argument. So we know that the debt to equity ratio in 2021 is 86%, which gives Happy Playz a much lower debt capacity. And we assume it's a low debt capacity because its competitor, Gleetil, has a much lower gearing, standing at around 56%. Now, it could be that Happy Playz needs to not that it has could do, but it does need to purchase a large quantity of toys to satisfy demand. Now, this is more of an OCS type question here, but it is possible to get asked at MCS as well. Would be if the business was to consider purchasing its inventory using debt finance. Now, normally that would be an OCS question, but it could be tailored to an MCS if it was required that you consider the impact that this would have on the financial ratios in any particular way, or whether shareholders would agree to it. Consider the characteristics of debt and equity finance, and why or why not, and that might be a good idea given the current situation the company is in. The other aspect could be that it just refers to, as I said before, the use of leasing to invest in property or invest in software, the acquisition of debt for software apps as well. So your relevant theory is pretty straightforward. You want to be looking at debt. You want to be looking at things like the fact that debt allows you to quickly access funds. It's low cost. But then equity is, there's no permanent payments, no compulsory payments, I should say, rather, sorry. Dividends are optional, so you don't, let's say, unlike interest payments. And so those are the sort of brief pros and cons of debt and equity, and it's worth making sure you know them for the sake of your answer. The next one then is effective teams. So the basis of this choice is that it's a key E2 topic. Common issues tend to involve creating effective teams for projects or departments. And the idea is that you must be able to correctly identify some of the important characteristics when it comes to creating effective teams and problems that Happy Playz could use them for to solve. So likely issues, okay, it could be that you need to establish an effective customer service team would be the big one, I think, because given the pre-scene, we know that customer service is a very important part of how the business achieves its value, right? In the model that we saw, we could see that it creates value quite substantially from the effective customer service it has. And if it needs to establish a new team, or maybe it needs to improve its current team, you may be asked to discuss the characteristics required to establish an effective team. So some key points, you may need to say that, well, look, we know that Happy Playz needs highly skilled and trained staff. That staff need to feel a sense of ownership when welcoming customers, because otherwise they're not going to feel motivated. They're not going to remain happy and try and really help the customer. They're just going to phone it in, and it's not going to be the best service when you break it down. There's also the issue of flexible working hours. It means that staff will not be on at consistent times, which can make it harder. If we think about Tuckman's stages of team development, you might think of the Norman and the Foreman, and the issue with teams that work different hours is, particularly if it does operate as a team, it is difficult to achieve that kind of synergy when everyone is working at different hours. Now, a lot of this will depend on how the manager handles things. It's not necessarily required that everyone be around at the exact same time for effective teams to work. It's not a contingent aspect, but it does help. It is something that does help when teams are forming, when they need to get to know each other. So potentially comes down to as well, if we're talking about characteristics of good teams, effective leadership is going to be required here as well. So the relevant theories. So complementary skills is going to be a big one, right? You need to make sure that the people that are hired, as we saw from the pre-scene itself, have the right skill set, that they are effective at communicating, both the customer service team and the managers. The leadership in that sense also has to be effective. And they also have to be appropriately trained and have the right motivation. And if you wanted to use a model to help with this, we could recommend the use of Belbin or Tuckman's models for high-performing teams. There's also Google's model for high-performing teams. That may be helpful when it comes to coming up with good, effective characteristics. You don't necessarily have to use a model in an answer like this, but it can help when forming your solution.
Now, while I've got your attention at the end of this video, I'd like to make you aware of the other products that Astranti sell as part of the case study course. So the first of these is a series of study text and tuition videos, and these come in two flavors. You have our written study text if you prefer learning through reading, or you can watch our videos if you're more of a visual learner. Now to start with, we have an exam technique study series, which breaks down how to succeed at various case study levels. We'll be looking at exam technique, writing style, and planning that you need to nail to be successful in your case study exams. And to accompany this, we also have a revision series dedicated to the theory side of things. This is because at the case study level, there is a large amount of theory you need to be capable of using in your case study exam. So what we've done here is we've taken the key areas of the theory from the 3 case study levels and condensed them into a series of chapters to help focus your revision. Moving away from the more generic products and onto the products that are specific to the case study pre-scene, the first of these is the pre-scene analysis video series. First and foremost, this contains a series of videos where we break down the relevant pre-scene at the appropriate level of the qualification, page by page. And throughout this video, we bring out all the key points that could be relevant for you in your exam, looking at various topics and things you might need to consider when revising for the case study. And then to supplement the pre-scene analysis, we also have 2 videos. We have the strategic analysis where we give a broad overview of what kind of strategy the pre-scene company is using and where it might be going in the future. And then we also look at the top 10 issues that we think this pre-scene company might be subject to and something that you may need to take into consideration when revising for the case study. We then provide an industry analysis document and accompanying video. CIMA like to see you demonstrate wider industry knowledge in your exam, and this is what this industry analysis does, as it gives you the wider industry knowledge you need in order to fulfill this requirement. Essentially what it is, it's a large document that we've compiled on all the relevant industry information that we have gathered so that you don't have to do the revision yourself. And then to accompany this, we of course have a video that goes over this document to pick out some of the key points for you if you prefer that. We also produce a number of mock exams for every sitting. We write 5 mock exams for the first exam sitting, and then we add 2 more supplementary mocks for the second exam sitting. We design these mocks around the specific issues relevant to the pre-scene and make them as close to the real thing as you will see in the case study exam as possible. So these are a great way to practice your exam technique and test your knowledge of the pre-scene company under timed conditions. And then to add value to this product, we also offer a marking and feedback service. So we have a range of highly skilled finance professionals working as freelance staff for us, and it is these staff that provide the marking and feedback service. So this is a great service to use in conjunction with our mock exams, as it gives you a great idea of how you're progressing in the areas you need to work on for your case study exam. And then if you're in need of extra exam practice, we also provide a more generic question pack product. So obviously there are only so many questions you could write about on a specific pre-scene. So what this question pack is a series of generic questions on generic scenarios that we come up with at Astranti, whereby we look to test specific topics that come up regularly in the case study exam. So if there is a particular topic you are struggling with and we've only tested once in our mocks, and you'd like more practice on it, then these question packs will be a great product for you to turn to. The penultimate product on this list is a product for those of you who would like to get a full overriding picture in terms of your revision all at once, and these are our masterclasses. So these are our expert tutors who hold 2 masterclasses every exam sitting, and these essentially cover all key aspects that you're going to need to know for your relevant exams. So from particular theories to analyses of the pre-scene, all the way through to tips and tricks you can use in your exam. And finally, such is the confidence we have in the quality of our product that if you do purchase a full course from us and you unfortunately do not pass your exam using our product, then we will offer what we call a pass guarantee. So if you did not pass your exam after purchasing our full course, then you will receive the materials for the next exam sitting free of charge. Okay, thank you very much for listening to that. I hope you find our products useful, and of course I would like to wish you the best of luck in your exam from everyone at Astranti.
And if you enjoyed that video and would like to see more from us, be sure to like and subscribe, and consider following us on social media like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, or go to our website linked in the description.